Good morning to everyone. Myself, Dr. Digambak Subhash Pawar. My roll number is 6. I'm Assistant Professor Srimati Sindhuta Jadhav, Arts and Science, Mahavidyalaya Maker. Today, I will here to present a seminar, and my seminar topic is disaster management. These are the contents: definition, step of disaster management, when and where disaster occurs, types of disaster, principle of disaster management, and prevention of disaster. Definition: according to World Health Organization, a disaster can be defined as any occurrence that causes damage, ecological disruptions, loss of human life, or deteriorations of health and health services on a scale sufficient to warrant an extraordinary response from outside the affected community or area. According to American Red Cross, a disaster can be defined as an occurrence, either nature or man-made, that causes human suffering and creates need that victims cannot alleviate without assistance. Steps of disaster management. There are 4 major steps in disaster management. That is nothing but a mitigations, preparedness, response, and recovery. In mitigations involve reducing the impact of the disasters or eliminating it completely. It helps to reduce loss of property and lives. In preparedness, the name suggests that must be prepared to face the consequences caused by the disaster. This also includes training and exercise. Hence, this process needs more safety and security measures. In third step, that is response, happened after the occurrence of disaster. This describes the action taken into response to the results caused by the disaster. Therefore, more resources are needed for this process. And the final step is recovery in disaster management. It denotes that all services are fully recovered and normal situation is attained. Hence, we can say that the cycle involves action before, during, and after any disaster occurs. These are the disaster management cycles. Disaster management is a process of effectively preparing for and responding to disaster. It involves systematic approach to managing the responsibility of disaster. Preventations means nothing but the mitigations, preparedness, response, and recovery. When and where disaster occurs. It occurs anytime and anywhere, not confined to any part of the world. Some disaster can be predicted, such as floods, cyclones, and whereas some cannot be predicted, such as earthquakes. Warfare is a special category because it is well planned and damage is the intended goal of actions. Enormous population pressure and urbanization, a flood, a drought, or an earthquake, millions of people are affected each time a disaster occurs. Large-scale displacement and the loss of life, loss of property, and agricultural crops. These are the types of disasters. Disasters are divided into 2 basic types, that is natural and man-made. Among the natural disasters are earthquake, floods, volcano eruptions, landslides, and cyclones. Among the man-made disasters are biological disaster, chemical disaster, nuclear disasters. We all have known about the COVID. COVID is nothing but an example of biological disasters. Some chemical hazardous chemicals are the example of chemical disasters, and nuclear accidents are the example of nuclear disasters. So factors affecting disasters, there are mostly 2 factors are affecting disasters: host factor and environmental factors. In host factor, age, immunization status, degree of mobility, emotional stability are affecting the disaster. In environmental factors, physical, chemical, biological, social, and psychological factors are affecting disaster. Then the principle of disaster management. Disaster management is the responsibility of all spheres of government. Disaster management should use resources that exist for day-to-day purpose. Organizations should function as an extension of their core business. Individuals are responsible each and every individuals are responsible for their own safety. Disaster management planning should focus on large scale events. Disaster management planning should recognize the difference between incidents and disasters. Disaster management planning must take account of the type of physical environment and the structure of the population. Disaster management arrangements must recognize the involvement and potential role of non-government agencies. Effects when disaster occurs. Death is there. Over the last few decades, millions of people get killed by the various type of disaster. Disability is there. Disability is there. Increase in communicable disease is there, like COVID-19 is the example of communicable disease. Then psychological problems is there. Food shortage is there. It is one of the very important, because due to disaster, leading cause of hunger. Food insecurity leads to many more issues like health issues, social and political, as well as economical issues or disturbances. Then socio-economical losses, shortage of drug and medical supplies due to disaster, shortage of drugs or medical is also happens. Even environmental disruption is there. These are some major disasters occurs in India. In 1984, Bhopal gas tragedy has happened. In 2001, Gujarat earthquakes, 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, and 2008 Mumbai attacks is occur. These are some major disaster which is occurs in India. Then India's vulnerability to disaster, according to World Health Organization, 57% land is vulnerable to earthquakes. Out of these, 12% is vulnerable to severe earthquakes. 68% land is vulnerable to drought. 12% land is vulnerable to floods. 8% land is vulnerable to cyclones. Apart from natural disasters, some cities in India are also vulnerable to chemical and industrial disasters and man-made disaster. So prevention of disasters. Disaster cannot be fully eradicated, but it can be controlled. It is achieved by providing proper awareness to the public. Prediction and warning system can be used to reduce impact of the disasters. We can predict the number of disasters. It is achieved by providing proper educations, raising awareness about potential hazards and how to address them, educating the public about how to properly prepare for different types of disaster, installing and strengthening predictions and warning system, such as there are a lot of technologies. With the help of a lot of technology, we can monitoring the behavior of cyclones, such as intensity of cyclones, direction of cyclones. So therefore, there is the need of installing and strengthening prediction and warning systems, promoting the use of fire retardant materials in constructions, advocating for capital works initiatives such as the construction and maintenance of levees, building partnerships between sector and agencies at the federal, state, and local levels to collaborate on mitigations projects. And last is the educating families and businesses on how to create effective disaster management plans or disaster plans. After that, purpose of disaster management. The main purpose of disaster management is to understand the disaster and take necessary rescue operations. It is also used to provide relief measures such as arranging rehabilitation programs. Another main aim of disaster management is to control the death rate. It also aims at protecting the environment and minimize the losses. Disaster relief addresses the immediate and short-term needs of disaster-affected community, such as setting up temporary shelters, delivering meals and waters from affected area, even providing healthcare services to affected area is necessary to manage the disaster. These are the disaster risk management, how to manage the disaster risk. So threat recognition risk and vulnerability identification is there. Risk analysis and assessment is there. Risk control option such as structural, non-structural, cost and benefit analysis is there. Strategic planning such as economic, political and institutional support consideration is there. Response, recovery, reconstruction and rehabilitation is there. It is very important. Even the information or knowledge about the disaster management is also very important to sustainable development. Then resilience building, community participation is there. So these are the key factors to manage the risk of disasters. Thank you. Thank you very much.